Alright gang, I'm back on the Alfa Romeo. It's really a fantastic old car. It was my dad's. So today, well actually for a while it was misfiring a little bit, not too bad, but it wouldn't start. But I noticed when I was checking the connections, like right here, I noticed that the brown coil was really hot. So let's turn this off. So I noticed that the coil was really hot, and I thought, God, that just don't sound right. It never gets warm. And lo and behold, a hot coil that is 1963 vintage, they die. And so this old Bosch coil died and the car would not start. I just happened to have in my pile of spares a made in Mexico black coil. And it turns out that it's a real common coil. You can get it at AutoZone. It's probably the same one for the Porsche, whatever you want to call it. And that was it. So isn't that cool? Really cheap fix. So if your car doesn't run, or it misfires, or it doesn't stay running consistently, it very well could be the coil. But I've had Harleys from the 1920s, 1930s that ran with the original coil, which just blows you away. But this car, it says like 80,000 some odd miles on the odometer, but I suspect it's more like probably 180. Let's take a look. Here's another thing I learned. So 82,850, but I suspect that's more like 182,000, but I could be totally wrong. This is a wonderful old car. Here's something I learned. This is really weird. So this is off a German tank, right? One of my friends gave me that. And it used to have the push button, like in a Porsche, where you push the button, turn the key, and start the car. And I just assumed that's how the car was. And I had a really good friend of mine redo the electrical wiring, because I had a whole bunch of wires all over the place, and he's a master. And he put in a new ignition, new Bosch ignition, and did away with the push button. And so all this time I was pissed, because it's like I really wanted it authentic. And I'd get on these Alfa Romeo forums on the Facebook, and I'd ask them, I'd say like, hey, do you guys have the push button for the Alfa Romeo? And I'd have these guys in Italy that had these cars, and they were like, no man, those cars did not have a push button start. They had a little light that was next to the ignition. And you know, the more and more I watched YouTubes and Facebook Alfa Romeo posts, god damn, he was right. They were not a push button. They had a little light there. But you can see that little German badge is off a Panzer 4 or 5. But then it's got that M that makes me think it's Kriegsmarine. So I could be totally wrong. But I think that little tag is for a telescope or something. Some sort of an optical device. But anyway, another problem solved. And then for a while it wouldn't shift right. And got it up in the air, and my friend found that the bell housing was starting to creep back from the engine. So bolted all that up, and shifted just like it should. Have to make another adjustment on the linkage, and it should be back to shifting normally. But you know, if you get an opportunity to find one of these cars, I don't care in what condition, buy it. They're simple to operate. They're simple to build. This is the simplest car I have ever had. And yeah, they are rust easy, so it's easy for them to rust. So you definitely don't do what I do, have them outside covered in tarps. I've had them in the garage, but my garage is filled now. But it's going back in as soon as I clear out the garage. Yeah, just a fantastic car. I wish I had more of these cars. And what I've learned is that if you had, say, a Giulietta, the 1300, you could pull the engine and trans out of that and put an engine and trans out of a later Spider, like a 70s, 80s Spider. But yeah, I've never done that, but I've thought if I ever found another wreck, I would probably do that, because those engines are really less expensive. But anyway, gang, just thought I'd share that with you. So if your car will not start, and it had been starting before, one reason among many of why it don't run is because of a failed coil. So, and what makes a coil go bad? High miles, lots of power going through it. But this is just an absolutely wonderful car. Always run coolant, don't run water. You got to tell people, some people don't know. And that's my thermostat job. It's still holding out. I got really generous with the maple syrup blue. And yeah, the carb is pretty whipped. So I think soon I'm gonna swap the carb out. There's my my fuel filter, and that fuel, it's got fuel in it. So, and here's another thing. So it was not running really well for a while in the summers, and I was thinking, what the fuck, you know? It's always ran well. It always would run 100-degree temps, right? So I thought, well, maybe it's vapor locking. You know, the fuels are different these days than it was, you know, a long time ago. I mean, I literally drove this car 2,000-3,000 miles at a time. And so what it turned out to be, after I had exhausted everything, it was the fuel lines. They had microparticulate in it from the gas tank to the front here. So I just took my air hose and just hit it, and just got all the debris out of the way. And now it stays running. So next thing to do is the linkage, and maybe find somebody to help me do some painting on it. Just make it serviceable and operational. I had to get some new tires. I got these, I don't know, made in China's. I had these 20-plus-year-old Big O tires. I think at the time they were like $220 installed. And you know, what's sad is they got plenty of tread, right? And this isn't from underinflation. They're just, I hate to say it, they're just a poor quality tire. But, you know, that's what they are. And then I had it running. It's still on green on the CTEC 7002. I took that big Optima battery out of the diesel bin, stuck it in here. Figured maybe that was the problem. Maybe the battery was going dead, but that was not it. And yeah, here's something you can use a single ski pole for. So if you're at a thrift store and they only have one ski pole, perfect. You can use it over this guy here. Just a great old car. What else? And then for me, I just put my most commonly used tools I keep with me on each vehicle. And of course, oil, coolant, brake fluid, all that. Just a fantastic old car. You know, I could easily spend $5,000, $10,000 on this thing and make it mint condition, but it runs and rides, and that's all I need. So there it is, gang. Failed coil. And a $20 coil, which I just happen to have, solved the problem. Fired right up immediately. Got the terminals all clean, that didn't matter. Put the new coil on, boom, fired right up. Alright, gang, it's back to doing dog videos, trying to save some dogs out of Apple Valley, and Southern California. It's a disaster, gang. I can't even put into words what a mega disaster it is. It's just industrial killing. Perfectly good, healthy dogs killed left and right, day in, day out, on an industrial scale like Hitler would have never imagined. So, all right. Oh, another oddball thing I learned about this car. This car, it's a 1963 Alfa Romeo Giulia Spider with the 1600 engine. It has a 5-speed trans. I looked on the internet and I watched some YouTubes with people who have the Veloce cars, which are more valuable, and all of those had a 5-speed trans. So I'm wondering, sometime in history, if somebody didn't swap the transmission on this from a 4-speed to a 5-speed, but maybe this series did have a 5-speed. But the Giulia had a 4-speed. So, just interesting stuff that you learn. Who has ever seen the rubber gasket that goes behind here? I had one guy in England tell me that that was a custom thing. That was not a stock thing. And another thing I learned watching YouTubes is that these cars were hand built from the front. All these kind of little pieces had to be fit at the factory by hand so that they're snug like that. Of course, this car needs a lot of loving. But as long as it runs down the road, you know, there's people that brag about how long they've owned a car, and there's people that brag about how many miles they put on a car. So I can do both. So, all right, gang, appreciate you watching my videos. Share the dog videos. Hope you learned something out of this. I know that this would have helped me if I would have been able to find this video. A hot coil is a failing coil. And once it gets really hot, it ain't going to work. So there it is, gang. We'll catch you on next YouTube.